So I'm really happy to be back here in the Abbey after being in Spain for 6 weeks. But that was a really nice experience. I've been there many times before, and I have a lot of friends and connections with Buddhist centers, so it was nice to be back there connecting with those people in those centers. And it was also really nice to see the centers are thriving. They're doing a lot of activities, and a lot of people are coming, including very young people. So I had a lot of nice experiences there. But I'd like to talk about one that I had that was a really valuable lesson for me. So most of the time I was in the cities, big cities like Barcelona, Madrid, teaching weekend courses at the centers. And a few retreat centers as well. And there's one not very big city called Onteniente, which is on the eastern side of the country, halfway between Valencia and Alicante. And there's a Dharma center there, and a group of very enthusiastic Dharma people. And I've been there before, about 3 times. And this time they wanted me to come again and just give a talk, a weeknight talk. And there was somebody organizing my tour, and so I was in touch with that person. Her name was Irina. And she said, yeah, this group of people really want you to come and talk, give a talk, and also stay for a couple of days. So I felt a lot of resistance to that. Because my experience in the past was nobody there speaks English. They know a few words, but not enough to really carry on a conversation. And I don't know Spanish. And so my experience in the past was not very comfortable. It's really uncomfortable being with people you can't talk to. And so I felt some resistance to staying there. I didn't mind giving a talk, but I didn't want to stay there for a couple of days. So I explained that to Irina, and she communicated with them, and she said, oh, there's somebody who can speak English. She's the daughter of the people that will host you, and her name is Drolma. So that's the Tibetan name of Tara. So I thought, well, yeah, I can't really say no. So I agreed to give a talk and also to stay. But I said, just one day, just one night, that's enough. So as the time came closer to go to this place, I could again feel this kind of going to that place again. And I said to myself, I'm doing this for them. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for them. So I could see that it was my self-centered mind that was resisting, that I was uncomfortable, even though they were very happy to have me there. But it was my self-centered mind that was saying no. And so I kept saying that to myself. I'm doing this for them. I'm doing this for them. And so in the end, I went and I stayed with this very nice family and their daughter Drolma, who is a very, very lovely young woman. And we had some very nice conversations over lunch and over breakfast and just, here and there. And the talk went really well. I won't go into all the details, but it was a very nice experience. And I think it was mainly because I pushed my self-centered mind out of the way and I said, I'm doing this for them. And and I could really see clearly how doing that makes it better for everybody. I know I felt happier, even though sometimes, it was a little uncomfortable. It was very hot. So I wasn't always comfortable, but just putting that aside and focusing on them and doing what would bring happiness and benefit to them, I could see that really did work. And so that was the lesson that I learned from that. And I feel kind of ashamed and like, why did it take me so long to learn this? Why did I allow my self-centered mind in the past to kind of take over? And and caused this reaction that I had in the past. And so, but yeah, it doesn't help to feel ashamed about self-centeredness or selfishness. That doesn't do any good, and it doesn't help to beat yourself up and put yourself down. So instead, I thought to explore what are the causes and conditions. This is what we always do in our tradition, is looking at the causes and conditions. Why there's self-centeredness on the one hand, and how there can be more other-centeredness, more altruism, caring about others. And if we understand what are the causes and conditions for those two very different attitudes, then we can work on it. We can work on reducing the causes and conditions for self-centeredness and increasing the causes and conditions for altruism. So that seemed to be a much more intelligent approach. So, so for self-centeredness, okay, what are the causes and conditions for that to be operating in our mind? Well, the root cause, of course, is ignorance, the self-grasping ignorance that believes there is a real I to be cherished. I mean, if we didn't believe there was a real I to begin with, then we wouldn't have self-centeredness. Okay, and so Buddhism says that ignorance that believes in a real, independently existing, objectively existing I or me, that's something that's been in our mind from beginningless time. And so it's like been there forever, and it's very deep and very pervasive and very hard to uproot, very hard to eliminate. It takes a lot of time and energy to become free of that particular attitude, which lies at the root of it all. So even though it takes time to completely be free of it, just to question it, as we're encouraged to do again and again, just to investigate what is this I, and does it really exist as it appears? So that definitely weakens it, weakens its strength, so it's less likely to kind of rule us, dominate us. So that's something we can work on. And then there's the habit of being selfish. So that's again a very, very long-term habit. It's been in our mind from beginningless time. As long as there's the belief in a real I, a real self, then there will be this self-centeredness, this obsession with the self. So that too has been there a really, really long time, and not easy to become free of. I mean, if you think about a habit that you've had in this lifetime for a couple of years, or maybe even a couple of decades, you can't just easily stop that habit, right? It takes time to overcome a habit. So a habit that's been there forever, from beginningless time, of course it's going to take time to overcome it. We can't expect to do that quickly and easily. And another factor is influence of others. Okay, so we're easily influenced by other people. Monkey see, monkey do. And so probably most of the people in the world and most of the people in our life, our family, our friends, our neighbors, teachers at school, people running our country, and so on. So most of the people around us, most of the people in the world, are also self-centered. Yeah, they have that attitude and are behaving in that way. Of course, there's some people who are less selfish and some people who are very unselfish, but they're probably a minority, my guess is. Yeah, my guess is, the majority of people are self-centered and are operating from that place, and the number of people who are less selfish or unselfish is relatively small. And so, yeah, if we're surrounded by people all our life, from the time we're born, we're surrounded by people who are selfish and behaving in a selfish way, then of course, that's going to influence us. And, and we kind of feel, well, that's just the way everybody is. It's okay to be that way. Everyone's like that, so why be different? So the influence of others is also a factor that increases self-centeredness. Another one I thought of is that if you have been harmed by people, especially as a child, if you're, as a child, And especially if it's the people who are supposed to take care of you, yeah, your parents or others who are supposed to be in the role of protecting you and caring for you and being kind to you, not harming you. But if they do harm you, if you do get harmed by them, because there is quite a prevalence of child abuse, different kinds of abuse experienced by children, that could also be a factor. Because if you have this experience of being harmed by the very people who are supposed to help you, then your conclusion from that is, well, I can't rely on anybody else to help me because they're just going to harm me. And so I have to take care of myself. I have to protect myself. So that's another factor that I came up with in my exploration. And that doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to quite a few people. And that could be another factor that increases the self-centered attitude that's already there from the time we're born. And another factor is the tendency to identify with self-centeredness, because we do have that attitude in our mind, and we do tend to identify with whatever we see in our mind. So identifying with it, feeling as if this is me, this is who I am, of course that solidifies it and strengthens it, and also makes it harder when you do hear about antidotes to self-centeredness and how you need to, apply these antidotes and counteract self-centeredness. There could be resistance to that because it's like, wait a minute, you're talking about eliminating me, eliminating myself. So yeah, it's important to be able to recognize that I am not my self-centered attitude. I and the self-centered attitude are two different things. And I'll give a quote from His Holiness later about that. And then another factor is if you think that it's not possible to change. If you think, well, I've always been selfish, this is who I am, this is how I am, I don't think I can ever change. So if you think you can't change, then it's difficult to put energy into trying to do so. Yeah, like, oh, what's the use? I can't change anyway. So those are just some of the factors that I came up with when I did this exploration, factors that enable self-centeredness to flourish in our mind and our life and make it harder to change that habit. And I invite you to do this exploration yourself. Look into your own experience, and you might come up with other factors than these. But it is helpful to recognize what are the causes and conditions for self-centeredness, because then we can work on changing those, overcoming those, and eliminating those. Then on the other hand, the factors for the opposite state of mind, that of cherishing others, altruism, compassion, love, focusing more on others. So if we understand what those are, we can work on increasing those. So one thing is having the confidence that we can change. Yeah. So I'm sure all of us can think of times when we weren't so selfish, where we're able to put others before ourselves. And if you look at those experiences, then you can see, oh, I can do that. I have done that before, and I can do it again. It is possible. I do have the ability to be that way. And also, if you look at the effect of that, the result of that, what was that like? What was it like to put others first? Yeah? And you can probably recognize, yeah, I felt good about myself. That was very satisfying. And also, other people probably felt much better too. They were happier. So it was good for everybody. So if you can see the benefit of that, you're more likely to want to try it again. And then habit, the factor of habit, making a habit, a new habit of being altruistic rather than self-centered. So one of the things we are encouraged to do, one of the things we do here in the Abbey and also in our tradition, is to generate a positive motivation, like especially in the morning, every morning, to bring into your mind this wish to benefit others. You can compose your own words, your own motivation to remind yourself of that, and really try to make it as sincere as possible. May I do what is beneficial for others and not do anything harmful to them. May I try to put others first before myself. So make that your motivation, and then try to carry that into your day. And even if it doesn't feel 100% genuine, you might think, oh, I'm just saying this, but it's not true. I can see selfishness lurking there in the shadows in my mind. It's not really genuine. I think that's okay. It's like that phrase they use in Alcoholics Anonymous, fake it till you make it. I think that's really true, you know. You don't have to be 100% genuine right from the beginning, but just trying to be that way. And the more you do it, the more it does become natural and genuine. And especially when you can see how beneficial it is, how good it feels. Yeah, I want to be like this more and more and more. And if you keep doing that, making a habit, making yourself familiar with it, then it will become more genuine, more sincere. And then the influence of others. So make sure there are people in your life who are more altruistic, and keep a strong connection with them. And being in the Abbey, I can really say, having lived here for several years now, it's so much part of the Abbey culture to recognize the self-centered attitude and apply antidotes to that. And there's a lot of transparency here, so people talk about their experiences in doing that in conversations, in the BBCs, in the skits we do. There's a lot of humor, a lot of fun around it, and so that makes it a lot easier as well, when we can kind of laugh at ourselves and not take ourselves seriously. So living with people who are doing that, where that's part of the culture, really, really helps. When you can see, oh, other people are doing this, I want to do this too. That makes it easier. And finally, just be on the lookout for, when doing this work, recognize if self-criticalness, self-hatred is coming in, and recognize that kind of attitude isn't helpful at all. If you're beating yourself up for being selfish, hating yourself, feeling ashamed of yourself for being selfish, that kind of attitude doesn't help. I don't think it brings about any long-lasting change. So I think what's much more effective is being kind to yourself, being compassionate, patient, being friends with yourself rather than enemies with yourself. And you can remember that, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the beloved teachers that we admire, like the Dalai Lama, they weren't always like that. They were selfish too. Long ago in the past, they were totally consumed with self-centeredness. But they were able to change that. They decided, no, I'm going to stop being this way, and I want to be altruistic, I want to focus on others, and they generated compassion and love, and bodhicitta, became bodhisattvas, followed the bodhisattva path. So they did that, and we can do it too. And just to read something that His Holiness said in the book, volume 5, I think, in Praise of Great Compassion, when talking about the disadvantages of the self-centered attitude. He says, in contemplating its faults, it is important to distinguish it from seeking the well-being of the conventional self, the self that exists. The conventional self has the capacity to practice the path and will one day attain the bliss of awakening. Seeking the ultimate happiness of the mere I is a productive endeavor. So the self-cherishing mind is one thing. That's an attitude we have in our mind. And there's the conventional I, the conventionally existing I, that wants to be happy, that deserves to be happy, that can be happy, and will be happy one day. Will attain the highest happiness of enlightenment. And that's perfectly okay. And that's not about self-centeredness, selfishness. The self-centered attitude, on the other hand, is an adventitious, ingrained thought on our mind stream. It's just an attitude in our mind due to habit. A limited attitude that pretends to look out for our welfare, but in fact constricts our open-heartedness and potential. It can be overcome. Pointing out the disadvantages of self-centeredness is not a criticism of the legitimate wish for the conventional I to be happy and free of pain. So do not get confused and blame yourself for being selfish. Rather, recognize the self-centered attitude as the troublemaker, like Venerable Sumpton has been talking about. What's that little creature that... Bodhibug, yeah, Bodhibug, yeah. Just using that as an analogy for the self-centered mind. So that's the troublemaker that makes you create destructive karma and causes you misery in this and future lives. Aspire to free yourself from it so that you and all other sentient beings will not be adversely affected by it in the future. So wonderful words from His Holiness. So yeah, so in this process of overcoming the self-centered attitude, we need to be clear that we're not harming ourselves, we're actually benefiting ourselves, enabling ourselves to have greater happiness and peace of mind, and ultimately awakening, and then benefiting all other beings as well.